All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's class where we'll be looking at a day in a PM's life. Without any further ado, let's just get right into it. So today we'll look at a few things, and by the time we are done here, I want you to have a clear understanding of what makes the product management role so flexible, right? And why that flexibility is, it can both be a strength and a challenge, right? You learn what really drives your day to day as a PM, and and what parts of your day are consistent, no matter how challenging it gets. And you also see that a product manager's job is all about, defining what needs to be done and why, and, being ready to kind of navigate whatever comes at you during the day, right? And lots more. And importantly, right, I want you to, walk away with the understanding that there is no perfect day in a PM's life. But what we have are habits, there are habits, there are patterns, and there are foundations, right? If you understand those, you have a much better time understanding the, unpredictable that comes with your job, right? So let's get right into it. So we are going to walk through how all of these things we've been talking about actually translate into your day-to-day as a PM, right? What it looks like when you come to work, what happens the moment you walk into the office, or like some of us, what happens when you open your laptop in your pajamas and begin your working from home. Now, let me be honest with you. It's very difficult to pin down an exact, predictable account of what product managers do every day. It's not the kind of role that, has a rigid routine, right? That's because it varies a lot, right? Seriously, it varies wildly, right? Just like most roles in tech, you never walk into work the same way every day, right? Every single day you get hit by different things, right? You get hit by something new, right? You plan your day one way, and then before you know it, something completely unexpected takes over. But even with all of those challenges, right, there's still a few things that remains somewhat consistent. There are things that no matter how many or how busy your day gets interrupted or how many changes you have, those things they still need to happen every day or at least on most days. Now that's what we will start with, right? We'll look at those consistent things that I just mentioned, and then talk about all the other stuff that can end up consuming your entire day, depending on how things go. Now, the main focus of a product manager is to define what needs to be done and why it needs to be done, right? That is like the center of your job. You own that part. Now, once that is defined, you then work into the engineering team to figure out how to, accomplish that. Now, please hear me clearly. You do not own how, the engineering accomplish what they are supposed to accomplish, right? But you are a key stakeholder in that conversation, the conversation of how they're supposed to do whatever it is they are supposed to do. You are involved, you are there, you are contributing, you are influencing, guiding, all of your PM duties, you're doing that. But you are not telling them how to write their code or build it technically, except in most cases where you are a technical lead as well, or you have some technical ideas, you can give suggestions, but you're not there to tell the engineers what to do, right? That is not your territory. Now, as a product manager, you are an individual contributor, but not with, a unique lens. Your job focuses, heavily on cross-functional collaborations. You're right in the middle of it. You're doing both strategic and tactical work. You're there switching between long-term planning and the day-to-day decisions. So that's it. Now you might be asking, so what does your typical day look like? And let's imagine it. You get into the office, say around 8 a.m. What do you do first? Right? You start by checking your messages, right? Your emails, right? You check Slack or Discord messages or whatever communication channel your team uses. Now, as you're reading, you're also taking notes, right? You're taking notes on things you need to address or things you need to follow up on all through the day. And you're also mentally arranging your day's priorities as well as you're reading all of these messages. Now, your first formal meeting of the day is usually the dev stand up, right? Let's say that should be around maybe 9:30 a.m. You show up at the dev stand up and your role there should be, pretty streamlined, right? You usually have, two things you're responsible for in that meeting. First, you answer quick questions, right? You answer quick questions on maybe tickets or development tasks that might come up. If there's a question that is maybe too big or too complex to resolve at the moment or quickly, you pack all of those tickets and you make a note that it needs more like a bigger conversation. You just pass that information to your team that maybe you get back to them or you sort it out much later, right? And then secondly, you provide clarity on competing priorities. Let's say, for example, there are, support tickets which customers raised and are waiting for. Engineering will be asking you, should we stop working on this sprint item to go address these tickets? Or, and so many other questions. That's where you come in. You help decide, do they pause on what they are currently working on and head over to do the support work that just came up? Or do they stay on the tasks with the assigned work they are already handling? You help them sort out all those blockers by giving them clarity. Now, if you're working on multiple product releases, right, that's different. And that's a very different team management, right? Because if you're working on different product releases, it means you have different team you're managing, right? You may need to attend more than one stand-up each morning, and that's okay. It's also common. I mean, later in this course, we'll go into more details about, daily stand-ups, and that'll be when we're talking about types of meetings, right? Now, right after the dev stand-up, you usually have your product team meeting, right? This meeting is more internal. Your product peers, right? Just your product peers, and maybe just a few stakeholders, right? It's a chance to, rally all the product people in the room. You discuss what's on everyone's plate, what everyone is working on. Now, this isn't a task tracking meeting. It's about, finding where people are having issues, where people are stuck, where some persons need help and, assistance, and just basically removing the blocker that they have. If anything confusing or tough, came up during the dev stand-up, right, they can bring it to this particular meeting and you can talk about it here because it is more in-house, right? Now, remember this. You don't have to solve everything all by yourself. That's not your job. Collaboration is key, like I have always hammered on. This is also a quick check-in space to make sure that everyone is still on the same page and that the product priorities haven't shifted or changed overnight. Now, the last bit priorities changing overnight, like I mentioned, it is very serious. Now, it actually happens more often than you think, right? Priorities can literally flip between the time you go to bed and the time you open your laptop in the morning. That's just part of being in the product, right? You have to be able to switch your gears quickly. That agility and the ability to adapt is one of the most important skills for a PM. It's necessary because priorities in the business or in the market, it can even be with your users, they can change without even you noticing. So you have to be um, able to adapt and you have to be very agile, right? Now, also, it's worth noting, right? The product team is usually one of the smallest teams in most companies, right? Honestly, it can feel a little lonely sometimes. I've been on teams where I was the only product manager, no peers, just sometimes it's just you and your boss, right? That's why it's important to build strong relationships with your cross-functional teammates when you have one, your engineers, your designers, analysts, support, and so on, depending on how large your team is, right? Now, after these two critical meetings I just mentioned, the dev stand-up and the product thing, what comes next? More meetings. Let's say it's around 11 a.m. now. The rest of your day might be packed with more and more meetings, right? Product managers have this reputation for being in meetings all the time, and it's not like a mystery, right? Sometimes your colleagues in the other roles, they're going to be so shocked when they look at your calendar. It's like completely full, wall to wall meetings, no free time, because from 8 o'clock in the morning to like 5 p.m. or whenever it's close of business for you, your calendar is always full, right? Not ideal though, but it's the reality. Now, I always joke about, that line of products, right? Product managers are the CEO of their products, because please confirm you can still hear me. Just give me a thumbs up. Let me know I'm getting a notification. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Yeah, all the meetings, all the coordination, all the stakeholders juggling, that's what, keeps up a big part of your day as a product manager. Now, so what are these meetings, right? You might be on customer calls, talking to users, listening to feedback. You could be in product prioritization meetings, right? User story mapping sessions or planning meetings, backlog refinement, sales, support, escalation, design feedback, reviewing of your requirements. You can even be in your sprint planning or sprint demos, right? The list does not get exhausted. It keeps going on and on. Now, by the time all that is done, and let's say you've had your lunch, it's probably around 3 p.m. Now, finally, you get to roll up your sleeves and do some focused work, right? You're done with all of the meeting. That's the time you pin, as your quiet time to kind of make real progress on, some of your other core product responsibilities. So, what kind of focused work are we talking about here? First, market research. You need to stay informed, like what's happening in your industry, what is trending, right? What is trending, what are competitors doing. This isn't just, about sitting down to Google things, right? Googling your competitors or your rivals. You're doing like a very good deep dive, right? You're reading things like SEC filings, if it's a public company, analyzing messages on the company websites, attending some webinars, right? Checking new releases, studying reports from industry research firms. Like you're studying, you're basically doing all of these things that will help you be a better product manager. Now, this research isn't limited to your direct competitors either. you're going to be scanning the entire tech landscape, right? Looking for any difference in user behavior or expectations that might affect how people perceive your product or your solution. And then next, you're writing one pagers or business cases. Not every feature requires a green light, right? You need to argue for its value, right? You write documents that describe the user problem, the proposed solution, its impact, and why it's important for the business. You do this a lot, especially during product recovery and roadmap planning. Then comes writing requirements. This is where you break down those problems into solvable units. You're not out here trying to craft user stories or writing out epics and some acceptance criteria. What you're doing is you're making sure the development team has a clear understanding of what to build and why they are actually building that. You might also be working on, things like wireframes rather, at the early stages, before designers jump in, you may create what we call a lo-fi, right? You may a low fidelity mockup, just a rough sketch to explain the idea. This helps you communicate your thinking and get early feedback, right? There are tools like balsamic or InVision, right? They are great for doing these things. No need to make it perfect. You're not the designer, right? It's just something to visualize and iterate on. And you're also facilitating grooming sessions. These are where you walk the dev team through the features and explain the stories. Now, by stories, I mean, the user stories. You clarify the requirements, confirm that everyone understands the acceptance criteria, and help align everyone before implementation begins. And finally, there's data analysis. Data is critical, right? You use it to inform your decision, to validate your assumptions, and back up your priorities. Now, in smaller companies, you might not have a data team, so you'll be doing this yourself as a product manager. You'll be pulling in the numbers yourself, creating reports and stating assumptions wherever it's needed. Now, always document your assumptions so that you can have something to come up to. Don't just say, oh, you have it in your head. Always document. As a product manager, what will help you stay focused and aligned is your ability to document, your ability to take notes, no matter how small. So your data is something that you should always document. Right. Kindly confirm you can still hear me and we are still together. Give me a thumbs up and let's know we are still together. Or use your favorite emoji on the chat for me. Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, so now that we've explored what a typical day looks like for a product manager, how your day starts, what anchors your day, the meetings, and everything that usually feels in the rest of your day. Let's take that understanding now into the next step. Let's just take it a step further. We are going to look at product management methodologies, right? And more specifically, we are looking into how to understand and apply best practices in agile product management. Now, let me say this upfront, right? Product management is not one size fits all. Just like your day isn't structured the same way every single time, your approach to product development shouldn't be either. But to know when to adapt or switch your approach, you first need to understand the available options and when they best work, right? So what are product management methodologies, right? These are structured frameworks that help product managers and development teams plan, execute, and deliver products to the market. Now, think of them as a guide made up of practices, principles, and habits that shape and gives rhythm to how we build our products, right? These methodologies streamline development and they kind of foster collaboration. They help make smarter and faster, and of course, more deliberate decision. But most importantly, they align your products with real user needs, technical feasibilities, business goals, and everything else. Now, here's where things get a bit interesting. Now, choosing a methodology is a lot more than picking a trend or copying what other teams are doing. It's more about evaluating your own context, right? So let's start here. Let's talk about the consideration you need to weigh before choosing a methodology. Now, the first consideration is product. If your product is still brand new, right, innovative and still uncertain, the agile or lean startup is likely your friend. They allow you build incrementally, right? They allow you learn from your users and adjust quickly. But if you already know what you're building and your path is, fairly predictable, then traditional methods like waterfall might work better, right? But who is writing on my screen? Please stop, 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 stop. Don't write on my screen. All right. Please be careful, guys. So, and we have culture next. Now, Agile is a culture-heavy methodology, right? It depends on collaboration, open communication, and a willingness to embrace change, of course, which is like our roots as product managers, right? If your team or organization isn't used to those dynamics yet, jumping into Agile might, frustrate them than you actually wanted to help them. In a team where there is hierarchy, right? A team where hierarchy dominates or where departments are, siloed, implementing agile can, feel like, forcing things on them, right? It takes a lot to shift the mindset of these people, right? From that fixed role and rigid plan to something that is, fluid interaction and adaptability. And it doesn't happen overnight, right? You need to like walk them into getting into the agile process. You need to talk to them and help them understand. Now you have uncertainty. When your product space is filled with assumptions, unknown or untested ideas, this is where things get somewhat tricky. Maybe you don't have a clear validation on your problem statement, or maybe your customer segments are changing. Maybe you haven't, run some experiments just yet. In those situations, right, uncertainty is very high, and lean startup methodology helps you run structured experiments to reduce that uncertainty gradually. Now, at this point, you're building hypotheses, right? Trying to test out MVPs. You're practically trying to learn very fast. If you're dealing with, a situation where you've done thorough research, your market is well understood, and your product direction is locked in, then you don't need to reinvent this wheel, right? This agile loop. Sometimes, clarity means structure is more efficient, right? And then you have preferences. Teams aren't just, some gears in your machine. They're made up of people, and people have style, people have experiences, and, they work with some level of rhythm and motivation. If your team has, strong agile experience, that can help you move faster. If your stakeholders are used to waterfall and are confused by story points and sprints, that could cause some sort of friction. So you don't just look at, what the book says, you look at what your people are ready for, right? How adaptable are they? What methodologies have they thrived under in the past? Now you use that insight that you have gathered to guide your choice, not just the product needs, but your team's comfort zone too. Now, am I saying allow them settle in their comfort zone? No. But for a start, you need to make sure that what you are introducing is not something that will scatter the team or cause confusion, but something that even if you have to change along the line, the transition is going to be smooth and seamless, right? And we have constraints. Now, this is about time, this is about budget, and about resources as well. When your deadlines are strict, right, on your resources, or your resources are stretched thin, Agile can help you deliver something small and valuable early, right? You can continuously improve without having to wait for a full delivery. But if you're working in a scenario where investors or stakeholders requires a clear upfront plan, or they are using a NAT chart or a precise estimate on their delivery times, waterfall might help you better, to help you better communicate and manage those constraints. It allows more predictability and accountability around timelines, around costing, but it's less forgiving of changes. You should note that as well. You have to be strict on everything. Now, industry. This one is often overlooked, right? If you're working in tech or fintech or customer apps, right? You network. Can you guys hear me clearly, please? Or is it just
I
familiar?
can hear you clearly. I can hear you clearly.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so I said if you're working in fintech or tech or customers app, right, agile makes more sense because you have fast iterations, regular feedback, you have the ability to pivot. But if you're in healthcare, please, I want us to take note of these things. But if you're in healthcare or let's say aviation or even legal tech, where compliance or safety or even government regulation is involved, you might need more structured approach. You have to use a more structured approach with these things. Now, these environments often demand, detailed documentation because they are regulatory, right? They demand documentation. They demand predefined testing and approval workflow that Agile may not cover in its default format, right? So adopt accordingly when you're, building these kind of products, right? You have to try to adopt accordingly. Agile can be modified to suit these cases, but you must be extra intentional in how you integrate compliance steps into the development processes, right? Extra careful. Now, the good news is you don't have to stick to one methodology. A lot of experienced PMs, they mix and match, right? And that's called a hybrid model. It allows you to take what works and leave what doesn't, adjusting based on the phase of the project or the maturity of your product. So now that we have, set the stage, let's go through the top methodologies you're, likely to encounter um, or even maybe work with, right? All right, now that we've grounded ourselves in the foundational idea of methodologies and why they matter, let's kind of drill down into agile methodology as a working, breathing system, that helps how we think, about product development in a modern, a more collaborative, and a more customer-focused environment, right? Agile, I need us to note, is not a tool, right? Neither is it a document. It's not also a meeting that you attend, Agile is a mindset. It's an approach, right? It's a way of working and thinking that focuses on delivering value early and often. I'll take that again. Agile is a mindset. It's an approach, and it's also a way of thinking that focuses on delivering value early and often. And it's one of the most popular methodologies in product management today, right? Especially in the fast-paced industry where innovation, learning, and customer engagement are very important and very critical. So let's try to break this down layer by layer. First, Agile is iterative and incremental. I had mentioned this some time ago when I kind of, introduced Agile a bit. That means instead of delivering the entire product after months or some, as the case may be, years of work, teams get to deliver smaller parts, often called increments, which are usable, functional, and testable. This allows you to, constantly learn and adapt. So rather than planning every I'm seeing a lot of network issues on the chat. Okay. Rather than planning every detail upfront, as we do in the traditional waterfall approach, right? Agile embraces change. If the market changes, if a user insight, changes or emerges, or maybe if an assumption gets proven wrong, you can pivot if you're using Agile, right? If you're using Agile, you can easily pivot, right? That flexibility is what differentiates the agility. Okay, now this is especially important in product management where change isn't just possible, but it is expected, right? Agile allows you to be responsive. We've hinted about these things before, if you remember. Agile allows you to be responsive. Let's say you're starting a new project. You don't have all the answers, yeah, but you do know what the success of your product will look like, right? So rather than trying to write the full blueprint, right, you sit down with your team and ask, what are we trying to achieve here? You try to define the outcomes. You figure out which problems are worth solving, and then instead of writing down maybe 200 features, or the entire feature that the product should have, you you start small, right? You say, let's get started with, what we know now and what matters right now. That is the benefit of Agile. And from there, you build your product roadmap. And remember, we said your roadmap is not some rigid long-term plan. It is flexible. And after that, you break the product into smaller features. You prioritize them based on impact and urgency, and you throw them into your backlog. That's your to-do list, right? Now, that backlog as well isn't static. It's always changing. It also has something you're constantly refining, right? You're refining it as you learn more about your users, your product, and your environment. Now you're ready to build, right? You don't take on everything all at once. You plan for short cycles of work called sprint, right? We have something called sprint. Usually these last about 2 weeks. Before each sprint begins, You and your team gather for something called sprint planning. Please, I want to see the number of persons that can hear me and the number of persons that cannot hear me. Because all this, Chioma can hear me. All right, I can. Hey, Chioma, thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, for the rest of us, you can drop off and join back, right? I'll just continue. So I said that before each sprint begins, right, you and your team should gather for something called a sprint planning. You look at the backlog and say, what can we commit to doing in the next 2 weeks? The team looks at, capacity, the complexity of the work, and the dependencies, and you agree on what is doable. And once that sprint kicks off, it has a focus time. Every day you have a meeting and you have reviews. At the end of the sprint, you don't just send emails and move on, right? You hold something called a sprint review. You show what you felt, you invite feedback. Sometimes, that's from your internal stakeholders, and sometimes it's actually from your customers. Now, the idea is to find out what's working and what is not working before you spend more time building something people, are not going to be interested in. But that's not the end. After the review, the team gets together for something called a retrospective, right? We'll know more about it when we get into types of meetings, right? Don't worry. And if you do it right, this retrospective, if you do it right, it can be very transformative. Over time, this is what makes agile teams better, not just faster, better, right? That's the full, the full flow of agile: planning, building, reflecting, adjusting, and then you rinse and repeat. It's a cycle, right? It never stops. It keeps rotating and it keeps, it's incremental. Now, I'll be honest with you, right? It's not perfect. Agile needs commitment, because I understand that it's captivating, it's engaging to know that you can always go back and change what you have done, that it is not static. But I need us to understand that it is not perfect. Agile needs commitment. If you've got a team where people, are used to top-down instructions and nobody is used to speaking up, or they don't get called upon for random meetings, and they are not speaking up during the meeting, well, it's going to be a bit difficult, because agile requires buy-in from everyone. It requires a buy-in from designers, the engineers, testers, stakeholders. I mean, everybody, right? Everyone has to show up, they have to stay involved and care about the outcome of the product. It also needs a strong product owner or product manager, right, who can hold the line. Because here's the thing: when your process is this flexible, people will throw in all sorts of requests, because they know that you can always go back and change, right? They will throw in all sorts of requests every single day. Can we add this? Can we do this? Can we change this? This customer needs this, and so on. It never ends, right? So at this point, it's easy for you to lose focus of your main target, your main goal, right? You need to know that agile doesn't mean doing everything. It means doing the right things in the right order at the right time. This is what agile helps you do. The right thing, in the right manner at the right time. And one more thing I need to say is agile doesn't make your problems go away. It just makes them visible sooner than later, right? Agile will not also fix bad leadership, or unclear strategies, or even a disengaged team. Agile is not going to fix that for you. But what it will do is that it will help you expose those things. And that is if you've handled them properly, right? If you handle them properly, that can be a very good start for you and your team, right? Okay. Now that we understand what agile is, which is the mindset of being iterative, collaborative, and flexible in a nutshell, right? It's also important to note that agile isn't just one thing, right? It's not one single process. Agile is more like a family name, right? And under that family, you have different children, right? Different frameworks or approaches that still hold the agile values, but they each go about in their own different way, right? Um, they each go about in their own different way. Now, let me take you through the most popular ones, the ones you likely, please confirm you can still hear me. Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, thank you guys. All right. So I'm going to take you through most of the popular ones, the ones you'll be, you will likely come across and maybe even use. All right, now let's start with Scrum. This is the one that's probably most well known. A lot of teams say we are doing Agile, but what they really mean is they are using Scrum. Scrum breaks work into both iteration, right, called sprint. Usually, sprint lasts for 2 weeks. Now, in those 2 weeks, the team selects a small set of work, and they do that by selecting it from the backlog, right? They commit to it and deliver a potentially shippable product increment by the end of the day, right? The word increment is key because you're not trying to build the whole thing at once. You're probably building slice by slice, piece by piece, right? You're not building everything. That's why you have these sprints that last for 2 weeks, right? Scrum has very clear roles. The product owner is the voice of the user, right? They decide what gets built and in what order it gets built, right? The Scrum Master is like a coach. They help remove obstacles and make sure the team follows Scrum principles, right? Now, the development team does the actual work, designing, coding, testing, etc. And Scrum has a structure. You start each sprint with a sprint planning meeting where you decide what you're committing to. Every day during the sprint, there's a daily scrum or stand up, just a quick check in to keep things aligned. At the end, there's a sprint review where you do a demo of what you've built and then a sprint retrospective, right? To reflect on how you worked together, right? You and your team. Now, Scrum works well in complex, fast changing environments. Think environments like, startup tech companies or product teams inside bigger organizations. But it requires discipline still, right? You can't half do Scrum. If you skip any ceremony or skip any roles in Scrum, you end up with, a very, very chaotic maxed agility, right? Now, when do you get to use Scrum? You need a regular, predictable pattern of delivery, right? Your team likes structure, but also wants to move fast. These are when you can use Scrum. Let's say you need frequent feedback and collaboration with users or stakeholder. You can use Scrum, right? You can use Scrum if you have these things. But if you don't have these things, avoid Scrum, right? Avoid Scrum if your team is small and prefers less structure. Avoid it if work is too reactive or changes daily, right? Support teams, for example, need to avoid using Scrum. Now, also, avoid it if you don't have someone to properly fill the product owner role. If you have a role that the product owner is not very, very present, avoid it. Now, another type is what we call Kanban. Now, Kanban is a visual workflow management system, right? It's built around the idea of flow, getting work from start to finish with minimal waste and as few interruptions as possible, right? There are no sprints in Kanban. Please take note. You do not have sprints in Kanban, right? No time boxed anything. Instead, you just work on task continuously, as capacity allows you, just keep working on your task, right? The team uses a Kanban board, which is, a visual layout, as you can see on your screen, usually with rows and columns, like you have your to-do, you have in progress, you have testing, and you have the part that says done. Every task is represented by a card, as you can see, right? And the goal is to move the card from left to right, one step at a time. If you have started, naturally your work is in to do. When you have started working on it, you move the card to the right where you have in progress. When you're done, you move it to where you have, testing or done, stuff like that, depending on how you guys have your naming collection. Now, Kanban is powerful because it makes bottlenecks visible. You can immediately see if too many tasks are stuck in testing or if someone is overloaded. It helps you kind of rebalance without needing a big meeting or a sprint review, right? It helps you. You can see when one person has his or her tasks stuck in to do for a very long time, or when somebody has a task stuck in to be reviewed for a very long time, right? Now, the golden rule in Kanban is WIP, which means work in progress, right? You can only have a certain number of tasks in a given column at a time. If, for instance, testing has a WIP limit of 3, right, and it's full, nobody can start new work until something moves forward. That's how you maintain flow and avoid overload. Let's say your WIP for to do is 10. But once you have 10 tasks in your to do, you cannot add more until you have moved that particular flow to the next one, which is work in progress. So this is the beautiful rule about Kanban. I personally love it so much, right? The WIP limits, work in progress. Please don't forget that. Right now, the only time you can use Kanban is, let's say your team works on continuous delivery, example, support, maintenance, and operations. If you have a team that works in that, then you can use Kanban. Also, when you don't want the pressure of sprint or strict timeline, you can use Kanban, right? And you can also use it if you need better visibility, right, into where things are getting stuck. You want to be able to see a visual collection of how things are working or things aren't working, right, as the case may be. Now, you need to avoid Kanban if your team needs deadlines and fixed deliverables. Now, some Kanban board varies, right? They allow you to impute delivery dates and so on, but then it also depends on you as the product manager to manage that, because people can always miss their delivery dates, right? But if you need a fixed deadline and fixed deliverable, you need to avoid Kanban. You need to go to Scrum, right? And if you have high complexity that requires you planning ahead, you need to avoid Kanban as well. You need to go to Scrum. Now, if you also struggle with self-management or accountability, you also need to avoid Kanban, right? You need to avoid Kanban, because if you do not have a good self-management or a good accountability, you will see your tasks get into the deadline and then you cannot even do anything about it. But Scrum does not allow you to do that, because every day you're having meetings, every day you're having some stand-up and you're reporting. So you would not want to report the same thing over and over again. So that alone is enough to force you into getting the work done. But with Kanban, right, you do not have that daily reporting system. Your reporting system is the digital project board, right, which is Kanban. Please, I hope we are still together. Please, if you're following, kindly give me a thumbs up. Let me know I am not talking to myself. We are 1 hour into the class. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Okay, right. So we also have lean and lean startup, right? Lean and its cousin, the lean startup method. These are more strategic level agile approaches, right? That go beyond just team practices and focus on the product life cycle as a whole. All right, lean is all about eliminating waste, waste of time, waste of resources, efforts, and even features. Lean does this thing where it asks questions. It asks, what's the smallest things we can build to prove our ideas work? Can we get customers validation early? Can we avoid building things that nobody will eventually get to use? Lean help answer all of those questions. Now, in lean startup, the cycle is, build, measure, learn. So building, you create a minimum viable product, which is your MVP. You are just enough to test an idea. Remember when we talked about MVP? And then you have measure, right? Get it in front of our users, see how they react, see how they interact, and then you collect data. And then you have learn. At this stage, you decide, do we move forward? Do we pivot? What should be done? Should we keep building? You change direction or you stop at this stage because you have learned, right? Because you have learned. So this is what lean does. So when do you get to use lean, right? So note that lean is about learning fast, not just about building fast, right? That's the key when it comes to lean and lean startup. It's about learning fast, not just building fast. So when do you get to use lean, right? You use it when you're in early stage product development, right? That's why you can still use MVP at this point because you're still in the early stage. You can also use it when you're in a startup or innovation team, right? Use it as well when you don't know what your users want yet, right? You don't know, you're still trying to test the waters, you're still trying to figure out what they want. Now, you have to avoid lean if you already have a clear product market fit, right? You already did your MVP, you already know how these things work, you already know what your customers want, right? You're building something with a strict legal or regulatory standard. You need to also avoid lean, right? You can't release incomplete products due to compliance. Avoid lean if this is your reality. You need to avoid lean as well. And then we have something called Crystal, right? The Crystal Agile methodology. Now, Crystal is one of the most flexible Agile method out there. It's more of a philosophy than a process, right? What it says is every project is different, every product is different, so your method should adapt, right? That is the philosophy of the Crystal Agile methodology. Now, Crystal categorizes projects by size and complexity. So far, example, Crystal Clear is for small teams. Let's say teams up to 8 people. You can use Crystal Clear, right? Small teams. Now, Crystal Orange is for medium teams. Now, please, I want us to take notes, get your pen and papers and take note of this. You have Crystal Clear, which is for small teams up to 8 or 10 people in your team. And then you have Crystal Orange, which is for medium teams, about 20 to 40 persons. And you also have crystal red or crystal maroon and so on, right? They all upscale. You have crystal red for when you have from 50 to 100 persons. You have crystal maroon when you have from 120 rather to 1,000, right? And so on. It only upscales. Now, instead of giving you fixed rules and rituals, Crystal encourages you to focus on communication, right? And it encourages you to focus on people and working software. It values what works over what should work, right? It values what is actually working more than it values what you think should work. Now, this method is great when you want flexibility, but you still believe in the agile values, right? Now the only time you can use crystal is let's say your team prefers lightweight processes. You can use crystal, or your team trusts themselves to organize. You can use crystal, but you need to avoid crystal if you need a more structured and a more guided method, right? Maybe you need structure and you need guidance. You need to avoid crystal, right? Let's say you're managing external stakeholders, right? Who wants process, right? Who wants visibility. You also need to avoid crystal. And let's say your team lacks agile. If your team lacks agile, you also need to avoid crystal, because if they lack the roots of agile, they cannot excel while using the crystal agile methodologies, right? Now, finally, there's feature-driven development. This is a more structured and more engineering-friendly approach that combines agile values with methodology, right? And it combines it with modeling and planning, right? FDD, which is feature-driven development, is based around well features, right? You start by building a domain model, then you create a big list of features. Now, those features are then broken down and assigned to developers to work on, them, iteratively. Now, it still delivers in small batches like Scrum, but it's heavier on documentation and design upfront, right? That makes it a good fit for large teams, right? That want to be, agile, but still needs predictability and process. Now, in this age, we are not really using this. We're not really focused on the feature-driven development. We are more focused in the more agile development. Now, when do you get to use FDD? Now let's say you have a big team with lots of moving parts. You want to work iteratively, but still have control, right? You are building a feature-rich platform with long-term goals. If this is you, you can use the FDD, but you need to avoid it if you are moving too fast for detailed modeling, right? You need to avoid it. You don't have strong technical leadership, please avoid it. Your team prefers fast, flexible methods, also avoid it, right? You are not meant to use FDD if you have all of these. So I'm wrapping it all up. So here's the thing. As a product manager, right, you're not just learning these methods so you can pick one and be done, right? You're learning them so you can speak their language, understand their trade-offs, and know when to actually use them, right? And what product to actually use them for, okay? And what product to actually use them for. And don't forget, it's okay to blend methodologies. Now, some team run Scrum for planning and Kanban for support, while some build using lean startups ideas, then manage the backlog using Scrum. So you can just play around with them, tweak them a little bit, whichever way it works for you and your team. Now, some do their testing and quality work based on XP, right? So your job is just to find the right mix, right? That supports your product, your people, and your space. So these are the types of agile, and we are going to be closing the curtain here today, right? I hope we are still together. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, so I'll take questions now, but while we are also doing that, remember during the last task, I said something that for those of us that actually read and understood what I said that we are going to be doing a brief presentation, right? You're going to be showing me what you did, how you did your persona. So I don't know, is there anybody that is ready to do that? Is there anybody that is ready to show us how he or she managed their persona for the last task? Do we have a volunteer or should I call someone? At the beginning of the class, okay, I think I should stop sharing, recording rather. Record.
He knows how to do the basics of tech, like using his phone to browse, downloading the applications and working on them. In business context, he owns
Sorry,
around.
Vincent. Very sorry. Can you start over? Just go over that again. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
my business persona's name is John Smith. He's 37 years and he's a gym owner and a personal trainer by occupation.
Okay.
His experience level is that he's an intermediate tech user. That means he knows how to use tech devices such as the mobile phone for the basics like browsing, downloading applications, and so on. He's in business context. He owns and runs a local gym. He works long hours. He offers personal training, group fitness classes, and nutrition advice. And he also has little time for meal preparation. So the scenario or goal to order a highly proteinous meal during his busy hours at the gym. The journey stages include, so due to the fact that he's very busy, when he gets hungry during his training sessions with his clients, and he has to find an application which he has to get the meals in between his break period to eat. So when he opens the application and finds a meal, he selects the meal, places his order, he waits for the delivery, and he eats and rates the meal. Touch points and channel. The name of the product or the app which he's going to be using to order the meal is called Healthy Bites. It's available on mobile devices or on computers. The components of this application include search bar and filters, push notification, order tracker, and in-app support. So we also look at the thoughts and emotions of the persona. So in the first stage, when he gets hungry, his thought process is that he needs food and he doesn't have time to cook because of his busy schedule. His emotion, as stated here, is hungry. He opens the app to find something containing high protein. The emotion here stated is he's picky with what he wants to eat. He finds a meal, it looks good and proteinous. Hopefully, it's not too late to order. So he's hopeful he can get the meal ordered. He waits for delivery. He hopes to get it in between his break sessions before he has his next client. So he's anxious about it. He eats and rates it. He likes the meal and he would like to order it again. So he's happy and satisfied. the user's action and pinpoints. When he realizes he's hungry, he picks up his phone to place an order. The pinpoint here is that he could be easily distracted because he's hurrying to get his order and he has limited time to place the order. Upon opening the app, he has to consider his options while also looking for a highly proteinous meal, but some meals do not show nutrition info. So that could be a pinpoint too, because if the meal does not have the protein info, he has to think about which product is going to be beneficial to him and that contains high protein value. After making his decision, he adds the meal to cart, but he is confused by the add-on option. So this could also be another pinpoint. He tracks his order, but there are no clear updates or late delivery. So, like, for instance, there might not be, while tracking the order he put in, there might not be a precise location of where the order is at the moment while he's tracking it. So he has to just follow through with what he has. He eats and rates the meal, but can't seem to find the save favorite meal option. After he consumes his meal, a pinpoint could be the app might not have a favorite option, so he could save it as one of his favorite meals in case he wants to order in the future. So some of the opportunities and improvement that could be made is adding high protein or healthy meal category to it to make it easy and accessible for him. So in case he wants to pick next time, it's easier for him to access it. Show nutritional facts upfront. So when he's looking for his highly proteinous meals, he could easily just search for it and find it without stressing. Add meals saving for easy access when reordering. So if he has some meals that he has consumed before and he really liked them or he feels like he should have them again, he can easily access them. Show more accurate delivery times. Let him know when the meal is on the way, where it is at what particular moment. Then the time frame or duration. So he should be able to discern when he's hungry with a space of 1 or 2 minutes and decide what he's going to do. When he opens the app, he has 3 to 5. He should be able to get the app opened in the space of 3 to 5 minutes. Find a meal. While the app should be easy for him to access, so he can find his meal within the space of 2 to 3 minutes, which is less time spent. Wait for delivery. The delivery should not take, give or take, it should not be more than 20 minutes. And eating and rating should be 5 minutes. The metrics or data points to track: the number of fitness-related meals ordered, clicks on nutrition info, the time to place an order, repeat order from saved meals, and rating from fitness focus users. Thank you.
Okay. So I need comments. Comments from teammates. I want somebody to rate that work. Why did you stop sharing? Keep sharing. I want somebody to rate that work. Naomi, go ahead and rate it. Show me what has been added, what has not been added, what is missing, or what is good about it. All right. Naomi, are you there? Okay. People that join class and go and fry plantain. Rose, can you hear me? Use the chat if you cannot unmute and speak. Don't just be silent. Who else? courses here. Where is she? There's the name I'm looking for. She has dropped off. Okay. Nika, go ahead. So nobody can critique this document. Is that what we are saying? That's another mark short of your task. Chukwuemeka, go ahead. If you can hear me. Wow, all of a sudden nobody wants to speak again. That's interesting. Okay then. I am not going to give any corrections then. I can't, but I'm in a meeting. All right, drop your critique on the chat. I won't give any corrections because I needed to hear our own point of view so that I can, start speaking from there. But since nobody wants to talk, it's fine then. All right, guys, let's call it. So let me take that again, right? So here's a sample of a customer journey, right? I did a sample for an online learning platform called SkillSprint. SkillSprint is a platform where users can learn tech and creative skills through expert-led video courses. Now, my persona, I decided to use Ada, a 24-year-old fresh graduate aspiring product manager who lives in Abuja. Her tech level is moderate, right? Her tech level is moderate. Now, her goals here, right, is to learn product management from scratch, get certified, and be job ready. And she also wants to learn at her own pace, right, while also working part-time. You get? Now, the journey stages. Now, awareness. Under journey stages, we have awareness. Awareness is, and then under awareness, please take notes, we have touch points. Now, touch point is how she came in contact with your products. It could be through Instagram, tech influencer, or a LinkedIn post, WhatsApp group, or even search engine like Google, right? And then customer thoughts. Her thoughts could be, I want to break into tech and what courses can help me, right? Those could be her inner thoughts. Now, she takes action, right? She reads some blogs, asks for recommendation. She decided to start clicking on ads, decided to start checking different platforms and different websites, right? To basically just have an idea. That's the action. Now, this action is still under her journey stages, right? Now, the pain points she's getting, too many options, right? Too many options online. The fear of wasting money on the wrong course that she's not sure of, right? So she's actually looking for, a good platform, but she's skeptical. Now, opportunities, right? The opportunities here is create beginner focused content and testimonials. Now, offer course previews, feature success stories. Now, this opportunity is not for the user. Now, this opportunity is for you, the product owner, right? Now we come to B, which is consideration. Under consideration, you also have touch points, right? Your course catalog, instructor profile, reviews, FAQs, and so on. Now, customer thoughts in this consideration. Her thoughts at this point will be, will this course actually teach me what I need to know, right? Now, actions, she starts comparing platform. Let's say at this point, she has decided, on the course that she wants to take, right? So now she starts comparing platforms, start comparing prices, starts checking curriculums and some, reviews and rating. Her pain point at this point is confusing pricing fears, not knowing if the course is beginner friendly or if it is best suited for her. Now, opportunities, right? Add courses. Now, then again, this is for you, right? This is the opportunity that this her pain point is generating for you as a product owner, right? You add courses, right? You add courses difficulty tags. Remember, her pain point is confusing price tiers, not knowing if the course is beginner friendly. So you add course difficulty tag. By that, I mean you add it, whether the course is beginner or whether the course is intermediate, right? Then you offer a free intro classes, right? transparent curriculum breakdown, and so on that can help her. Now we get to the decision point. Now the touch point here is checkout page where she has to pay, right? Pay for the course. Now, customer thoughts, I'm ready, but I hope it's worth the money. This is what she's thinking. Now, actions. She uses, maybe a promo code, selects payment method, enrolls in the course. Now, her pain point at this point will be payment failure, right? No immediate sorry, who's that? Oh, I see, I'm here to watch the last class. Okay, where was I? Right, payment failure, not immediate access, too many steps to enroll. Now, the opportunity this opens up for you as a product owner is simplified payments, right? Give instant access, offer bundle discounts. Now you move on to D, which is learning experience. Now I need you to understand that this can vary depending on the kind of product you're building. It is this extensive because of the kind of product I chose, right? So now learning experience, you have the touch points for this is video player, process tracker, discussion forums, quizzes, right? Those are the touch points that the user is going to get to. The user will get to a video player, the user is going to have a progress tracker, discussion forum, quizzes, and so on. Now, customer thoughts at this point is this engaging enough for me to finish it? Those are, conflicting thoughts. Now, action. The action the user takes here is, watches modules, takes notes, asks questions in community, and completes assessment. Now, I need you to remember, this is not a live class platform. It is a self-paced platform. So that is why you have things like ask question in community, because you cannot ask question in the class because it is not a live class. Now, pain points, boring delivery, technical issues, low motivation to finish, and so on. Now, the opportunity this creates for you, right, it is, add gamification, which is badges and levels, right? Now, progress, notification, responsive support. You should have a support system that, helps to tackle these pain points that she's having. And many other, you have the post course. Now, touch point for the post course, that right after she has finished the course, you have certificate page, email follow-up, LinkedIn sharing, course feedback. These are the touch points that your product should have. You should be able to take her to the certificate page. You should be able to send her an email follow-up, and she should be able to upload that certificate that you have given to her to LinkedIn, right? And she should be able to share course feedback as well. Now, customer thoughts at this point, was this worth it? Can I use this certificate to land a job? Remember, if you go back to her goals, she wanted to be able to land a job after learning this, right? Now, actions, she downloads the certificate, updates LinkedIn, leaves a review, browses other courses. Now, the pain point here is no career guidance after the course, vague certification value, all right? She has finished learning, you give her the certificate, and that's that. Everybody go your way. Right now, the opportunity this creates for you as a product owner is that you get to offer career support, job board access, alumni testimonies, discounts for next course. That's if the person still wants to use your platform. Please confirm you can still hear me. Just give me a thumbs up. All right, thank you. Right, so now, if you want to look at the emotional journey of all of this, you see the stages, you see the emotions. In the awareness stage, she's curious, overwhelmed, and the intensity is like 3, right? You have the intensity of 1 to 5, and her own is like 3. Consideration, she's hopeful, she's anxious, and decision, she's excited, she's nervous. Now, these are all the emotional journey of the user. Now, suggestions for improvement and all of those. So this is what we call a customer or user journey map, right? This is different from just persona. This is a persona, right? Persona is just you having, this one. A customer journey map has these other things, these other pain point, touch points, and feelings, which I mentioned during the next the last class rather. So I hope that makes sense to us and it answers a few of our questions. So now I have given you people expo for the task that I basically asked you to do for me, right? So I am expecting that everybody gets it right? Please send in your task. Thank you guys so much. So this is 2:40. We're going to call it a close. Do we have any other questions or concerns? Please, let's try to be reading chat on Discord. Before you come to ask a particular question, I would advise, right, that you scroll up to see if somebody else already asked that question and if it has been answered, right? So that you don't come back and ask a question that has already, it's recording, question that has already